Today, the World Health Organization officially announced that this is a global pandemic.
In the next several days to a week or so, we're going to continue to see things go up. We cannot be discouraged by that because the mitigation is actually working.
The unvaccinated overcrowd our hospitals. I'm moving forward with vaccination requirements wherever I can.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Otto, and welcome to episode 4 of COVID Secrets. So far, we've shared expert advice on the truth about COVID, about the injuries and deaths caused by the vaccine, and how effective early treatments for COVID have been censored by Big Pharma and the government, as well as what these treatments are and how to use them. During this episode, we'll deep dive into the proven treatment strategies that expert doctors have used to help their patients recover from the detrimental effects of the COVID vaccine. These are strategies that anyone can use and are not only for people who are experiencing obvious side effects from the vaccines, because even if you're not experiencing adverse reactions, the spike protein is still causing damage to your body. We'll start with Dr. Michelle Sherwood, who talks about how she and her husband, Dr. Mark Sherwood, used the 7 pillars of health to focus on helping their patients heal from vaccine injuries and restore balance in their body. She goes into detail about what these pillars entail and talks about how, with this protocol, they have had no patients die from COVID or the COVID vaccine injuries. And they have 9,000 patients in their clinic. Dr. Sherwood, why don't you tell me about your background? What's your medical training and your experience in the medical field?
Well, people look at me and they think I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, great medical practice, successful doctor, etc. and otherwise. But I didn't grow up that way. I had a pretty rough upbringing. My father was injured by the time I was 12 years old, which put me in the workforce young to help my family. I quickly became a massage therapist as a means of making a living for not just myself, but my family. And as a massage therapist, that's an alternative form of healing. It's a very powerful form of healing. It's laying hands on people and helping them heal. With that being said, as I was a massage therapist, I did think at one point I was going to be an Olympic athlete. I was on my way to the Olympics in Seoul, Korea in the 80s in the martial arts Taekwondo, and ended up with a severe injury to my knee, my left knee, which in that instant, it destroys your life. So I had a client come up to me one day and she said, Michelle, you're a great massage therapist, but I don't think this is what you're supposed to do for the rest of your life. And she said, if you want to go back to school, I will pay for your first semester. So it didn't take me long to go home and to think about what it was that I wanted to do. With my background being a massage therapist and laying my hands on people, I thought, great, I'm going to go to school to become an osteopathic medical doctor. And through 12 years of training, I became an osteopathic physician. Now, that's by choice. I could have become a typical MD. MD knows algorithmic medicine. They do not lie their hands on patients in the way that an osteopath has been trained. Every single osteopathic physician has been trained to do musculoskeletal medicine. However, in today's day and time, osteopathic physicians have left that art behind. They practice algorithmic medicine, pharmaceutical medicine, diagnostic testing, but they really don't get to truly know their patients. So after 12 years of college, going through medical school, going through residency, going through an internship in internal medicine, becoming a board-certified internal medicine physician, I went on to become a sports medicine physician, and then found myself in mainstream medicine, in the system. Survived that system for about 6 years until one day a pharmaceutical rep come up to me and he said, you're really nothing more than a drug whore. And I was instantly offended. I was crushed. I was hurt. I had to step back and think, what am I really doing for patients? Am I really helping them heal? Am I really teaching them and educating them about the foundational principles of how to keep the human body well? The answer to that question, when I really got quiet, was no. I was prescribing a pill for a nail, doing diagnostic testing, just simply getting them being on a gerbil wheel, 5-minute visits, and of course they want you to see as many as possible as you can in an hour. That's no time to get to the root cause. That's no time to lay your hands on a patient. That's no time to get into their life to find out what the root cause of the sickness is. And it wasn't too long after that I found myself out on the street without a job, because the system and myself no longer saw eye to eye. So in that's how the Functional Medical Institute was born, is out of tragedy and really understanding that I wasn't a fit for mainstream medicine. And about a year after getting into practice, that's when Mark and I joined a partnership with putting what we have from mainstream medicine and the naturopathic medical insights together to blend the two. Medicine is important. When somebody is sick and they need an antibiotic, you want the best. When somebody is traumatized and they've got an open gaping wound, you want the best trauma surgeon. But that's not the way medicine is really designed to be for in the primary care physician's office. We as the physician should be teaching people how to be well. So that's a long answer to a question that you asked me about what is my background and what is my history. We really, really aim to love and take care of people and give them a pathway to true health and to show them how they really do play the major role in their health care. If we don't equip them, you can't change what you don't know. And people do think it's just a pill for an ill, when the responsibility really lays in the patient. So from our standpoint, a lot of our practice is about educating people and educating them on a healing journey. We call it deprescription. We like to deprescribe. That's one of our main missions in the Functional Medical Institute. Well, people will come in on 12 medications and no one has stopped to look at what these are for. Are they duplicates? Are these really necessary? Is it time to come off of them? So that's one of our goals, is to get rid of the unnecessary prescription of chronic medications. And then the second mission that we have is to eradicate all self-imposed chronic sickness and disease.
Dr. Sherwood, when it comes to the number of patients you've seen and how many fatalities you've had from COVID or COVID vaccine injury, what would you tell me in that regard?
Well, the patients that come to us for care, a lot of times have failed in the mainstream system. They come to us looking for a different way. So foundationally, we practice 7 principles or 7 pillars of health. And the first one that's at the top of the list is nutrition. Nutrition, nutrition, nutrition. Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And if we are not foundationally nourished with, of course, proteins, carbohydrates, and fats in the right ratios, and with all of the nutrients that the body needs for cellular metabolism, not just to make energy, but to also detoxify and to also get rid of these things called radicals. If we don't have the nutrients that we need, we don't stand a fighting chance. So we've got to have good foundational nutrition at the root of our protocol. Second, we've also got to have adequate rest. We are under-rested in today's time. Artificial lighting. We're not getting enough sleep. We're not going through the circadian rhythms appropriately. And think about the impact that plays in the immune system. It's an immunosuppressant. So if nutrition is poor and sleep is poor, there's 2 strikes against us. So we really have to learn to take control of the things that we can. So those 2 are at the top of the 7 pillars, along with stress management. Now, stress is one of the number 1 reasons that's going to drive somebody to the doctor's office. We're stressed out. We can't manage stress emotionally. It drives us to do crazy things, maybe drinking, whether it's alcohol or caffeine, drugging, putting chemicals into our system that can complicate pathways and detoxification pathways. It can lead us to other habits or behavioral habits that destroy our relationships. So we're going to the doctor to help us modulate these things called stress, high tension, hypertension, high blood pressure. So it's not a pill for an ill. It's simple behavior modification. Learning to live a mindful life, an intentional life. That helps to take the stress off the immune system, and that helps to heal the immune system. And then there's this thing called movement. we call it exercise. Without movement, sitting is like the new smoking. What does smoking do to our system? It adds up these things called free radicals. So the system is already in a radical state in the face of a virus. If we don't eat right, if we're stressed, if we don't move, there's three. And then stress management, those 4 pillars, those are all foundational lifestyle principles that we can do something about to strengthen the immune system. Then when we look at things like genetics, now we know that we're born with a certain set of genes, right? We can't change our genes. The genes may be the loaded gun, but it is the environment that pulls the trigger. So if we have the standard American diet on board, and we're stressing out those genes with the lifestyle choices that we make, and we're not moving and we're stacking up free radicals, boy, our genes, they're receiving all this information over the top of them. So we put ourselves behind the 8 ball with this thing, I believe Dr. Mark talked about it, called comorbidities. Now, just because you're born with a certain set of genes does not mean that that has to be the outcome, especially if we know how to play the game. So if we can analyze those genes and we see deficiencies in detoxification, we can fix that. We can help the body detoxify better. We say, one of the things we say is the solution to pollution is dilution. We've got to get the offending agents out. We have to be mindful enough to stop the incoming offenders. That takes the pressure off the immune system. So in terms of oxidative stress, stopping the drinking, stopping the caffeine, the things that upregulate that oxidative stress system, putting the nutrients on board that run the methylation pathways. Methylation helps to heal the DNA and the RNA. It helps cellular turnover. But if we're not living in accordance with the genes that may have a little bit of genetic weakness and we're already behind the 8 ball, that's the person that's predisposed. Plus the standard American diet, that's like the sin of all evil to the human body. There's no nutrition in that. It's empty. It's heavy fat-laden, oxidized, rancid fats, oils, carbohydrates, the carbohydrate load. Sugar is the most deadly, lethal poison to the body. It injures this thing on the inside of the arteries called the glycocalyx. It's like a little furry lining on the inside of the arteries. And every time sugar goes through the vessels, it mows that glycocalyx down. And it takes hours for that to recover. So if we're not mindful, we may not be able to see the damage done in real time on the outside, but it's being done on the inside. And it's called comorbidities. So until we become mindful and conscious of what we're actually doing with this human system, with our genetics and how we're treating it, with our lifestyle and nutrition and stress management and movement and sleep, we're gonna be behind the 8 ball. We have to step into lifestyle management and take charge once again. The last 2 pillars are hormones. Now, as we well know, there's lots and lots of hormones, from insulin to thyroid to adrenal to male and female sex hormones. They all are very, very intertwined. And most people do not know that insulin is the one hormone that will dysregulate all of them. And every time we eat a meal, if we're not mindful of what that meal is, the insulin levels will surge. And if the insulin levels stay high all the time, that predisposes us to metabolic syndrome, obesity, type 2 diabetes, then here comes heart disease, and then the end can be cancers. So if we don't have good hormone balance, then the system is aging, it's oxidizing, it's rusting much quicker than it has the potential to need to. So as clinicians, we can optimize hormone balance from nutrition, supplementation, then if necessary, we can even go on to adding hormones. And then the last pillar is peptides. Peptides are amino acids that are strung together in chains of less than 40 amino acids. And we know that amino acids are the building blocks of life. If we don't have the right amino acid score and the right amino acids in our systems, we can't make good proteins. Therefore, we can't make good tissue. We can't make good organs. Therefore, we're not going to have a whole organism or a healthy organ system, healthy person. So that might be the last thing that we put on boards would be peptides to make sure a system is optimized from the top to the bottom.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful. I appreciate you systematizing the information like that so people can understand like all the steps that they go through versus just one or two things. And these are the ways that you've seen people have optimal health in your clinic. Is that right?
That's right. You know, so we help them walk through a process to get to the root cause, and everybody's system is different. So we call it personalized lifestyle medicine. We literally treat the person. Nobody is an algorithm. It's unique and it's individualized every single time.
Hi, it's Jonathan, and I'm so glad you're here watching this episode, getting this life-saving information. Hey, did you know that the doctors that are in this series, if you search for them, try to find this information on YouTube or Google or many other search engines and video platforms, you cannot find it. You can't find this information. I'm assuming you've tried, and if you haven't, go try. Go have a look around and see that basically all you can see is bad things about these people. And by bad things, I mean things that aren't bad, like they're getting accused of, this doctor prescribed ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. How could he do this? This is so terrible. Ridiculous things like that being waged against them by media agencies, news stations, all this ridiculous rubbish, but not the actual information about this that would cause you to understand how to use it, how to get it, and how to use life-saving protocols and get the right nutrients and supplements into your body, the right diet, all of that. All of it's hidden. Of course, reversing vaccine injury is the furthest from something you could find anywhere basically on any mainstream platform. And even if you search places like DuckDuckGo.com, if you know how to use that search engine that gets under the radar of the censorship issues, you still can't find cases of these vaccine injury reversals just because it's not easy to find. There's not a lot of people talking about it. So I'm so grateful that we have our experts talking about these subjects, and I'm welcoming more information on this subject, and that we can come to the point where this is spread out all through the internet. That's my dream, that's my goal. And the big takeaway for me is that it's so important right now to own this material. Censorship has never been a bigger problem, and owning materials that can help you change your life, save your life, change and save the lives of others. That is what's really critical right now. So you can learn more about our program and what we have here. We have a huge discount that we're offering so that it's affordable for everyone. And you can get all of our bonus content. We have close to $1,000 worth of bonus materials that you're getting for free as a gift for saying yes, only during this special window of time, which is during this free screening. So make sure you take advantage of that while it's available, and don't forget, so it's best to just do it now if it's something that you want. You can click the buttons or the banner below. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed this episode.
So when we're dealing with an individual, let's say somebody comes in and they have just simple fatigue, and they've tried a lot of things. They already have the right things on board, from vitamin C, omega-3s, vitamin D, they're doing their colostrum. They think they may even be eating right. So we'll do a complete overhaul. We say test, don't guess. So we're going to want to look at those lab values, perhaps those lab values, to perhaps see where we might need to tweak things. Now we run what we call the Mercedes-Benz of labs. That's going to get all of the inflammatory markers of heart disease. That's going to look at all of the markers of metabolic disruption. Are you predisposed to diabetes? Do we need to dial back that nutrition even more? Change up your macronutrient ratio? And then there's also, we're going to look at nutrient levels, hormone levels. We're going to evaluate where we think the problem is. So we go in depth and in detail, not just from the Mercedes-Benz of labs, but we're going to look at a micronutrient score. That micronutrient test tells us the levels from A to Z of every nutrient in the system, including amino acids. So if somebody is very, very low in vitamin D, even though they're taking 5,000 international units, they may need to go even higher. So we're going to optimize that protocol for them. If their amino acid score is very low, we're going to want to optimize their protein sources and ensure they're getting adequate proteins. Sometimes vegetarians, for example, don't get enough of the right amino acid score because certain foods are missing amino acids. They have to be very careful about combining their proteins just right to get enough essential amino acids in the system. There might be an individual that says, I've got leaky gut, I've got bowel disease, or I'm bloated all the time. We might go after a stool test to identify, does this person need enzyme support? Do they need probiotics? Do we need to completely change the gut microbiome? What about what's living there? Is it an unfriendly organism? Is it a bacteria? Is it a virus? Is it a parasite or otherwise? Some individuals have such a high degree of inflammation in their system that their immune system is already under attack. So we really have to see what is going on in the system with evaluating where a person is at. If they come in already on a basic protocol and they come in already having done some of the foundational nutritional work that we do. We have a plan called the 40-day reset plan. And if they already come in and they've already done those things, then it's time to go to the next step. We need to test. We need to look at that Mercedes-Benz of labs, that micronutrient testing. We may need to do a stool test. We might need to even evaluate genetics. Genetics gives us so much information. It tells us about how they detoxify. And that is one of the most important things, even when it comes to talking about vaccine injury. I mean, if the vaccine comes in and a system is not able to eliminate it through phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification systems in the liver, it's going to get stuck in the system somewhere. So we have to improve a system's ability to eliminate through the liver, through the kidneys, through the lymphatic system, through the skin. We've got to clean up those pathways and help them improve their ability to get rid of what may seem like a foreign offending agent to their system. We have to look at oxidative stress pathways. Going beyond just simple immune protocols, there are enzymes called superoxide dismutase and catalase, which are actually blended in supplementation now. They can be found in multivitamins. They can be found in certain sources of vitamin D. They can be purchased by themselves. And a lot of times these enzymes are actually genetically deficient. So if they're genetically deficient, that system is set up to have oxidative stress or to rust in real time quicker than a system whose enzyme systems run normally. So if we know that, we can support that. Individuals may be predisposed to type 2 diabetes. They may be predisposed to lipid dysfunction. So if we can see that, we can support the system in being optimal and not being predisposed to chronic sickness and disease.
That's really helpful. So, and let's go let's have a look at common deficiencies because, and you can correct me on this if you see it differently, if people have deficiencies, it sets them up for more issues when it comes to toxin exposure because the deficiencies will mean that, let's say, for example, if they get exposed to aluminum and they're deficient in zinc or magnesium or some of these heavy minerals, then the heavy metals or the denser minerals there will be an issue here where the body can take in these toxins and distribute them to the receptor sites, and then people are more apt to injury. And even if these things have now happened, we're all in these same situations, correcting the deficiencies by supplementing with the correct nutrients will then allow our body then to quiet this issue and help the body to get rid of these toxins and support the body's deficiencies and allow the body to function properly. Is that true? And then how would you advise these types of minerals to be put into people's diets and what dosages?
That's absolutely true. And again, that's the reason that we test and don't guess. So the genetics tells us where they're likely to be deficient, and then the testing is the scorecard. How deficient are they? What actually is it that they need? And then we'll optimize those nutrients personal to the patient. So two things that we see deficient 100% of the time when we test the lab is omega-3s. 100% of the population is going to be deficient in omega-3s 100% of the time if they're not supplementing or supplanting the diet. And as we know, the diet is very insufficient in omega-3 fatty acids today.
Can they do it with flaxseed or chia seed ground up? Can that get them omega-3s that they're looking for, or not so much?
There are omega-3s in flax and in chia and in hemp. Those do come with also omega-6s, 7s, and 9s as well. So it may not get you the ratio that you're actually looking for. If you're a vegetarian, you may have to bring in the algae sources, which of course is going to get you a little bit higher in the DHA. A genetically efficient system can make some of those omega-3s, EPA and DHA, from ALA in the downstream pathways. So if you know the genetic structure and what you're doing with the person, you can get a good quality end outcome by supporting with some of these other plant sources like flax and hemp and chia.
Okay, great. And like if they're doing it, like let's say if they're doing a fish oil supplement from like, you know, smaller fish or something like this, because they don't want to get it from tuna or something like this. You want maybe the smaller fish, because the DHA and the EPA are from fish oil, right? Whereas with the plant-based omega-3s, I believe they don't have the DHA or EPA.
They don't have the EPA.
But they do have the DHA.
Correct.
Yeah. So no EPA, but they do have DHA. And then one would argue that as long as you're getting enough, or that, and you know, using algae and other things, that they can do it well and sufficiently. But I guess there's different pathways here. But how would they do it to make sure they have enough? Like let's say with flaxseed or chia seed, is like half a cup of each a day. I know it's got to be a bit higher. They could have like a chia pudding ground up. I know that if you eat flax seeds and chia seeds when they're not cut, then that can be an issue. Your body cannot not absorb them at all. And then with a fish oil supplement, what's the dosage?
So usually the omega-3, the fish oil supplement, is going to be 4 grams a day. Now again, every metabolic system absorbs that and uses that differently. But our recommendation is usually at 4 grams to get that, we want it above 6. We'll push that index up to 6 and 8 oftentimes because the omega-3s are so anti-inflammatory. Plus the omega-3s are also in every single solitary cell membrane in the body, and the omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. So we want to ensure that that load is substantiated. In the terms of flax and chia and hemp, yes, you have to grind it. Mainly flax, or you soak it with the chia. That will help express the omega-3s so that they're more bioavailable to the system. And it's usually a quarter of a cup for the majority. Some need a half a cup if their omega index is 2 or 3. If it's above 4, usually a quarter cup will get them into the normal range. But if they're way down low, they're going to have to do more to become in the optimal range.
Awesome. That's really helpful. Fantastic. Dr. Michelle, what about vaccine injury recovery? Have you seen any cases of people recover from an injury, and what types of issues, if you have seen that?
So now the biggest things that we've actually seen in the practice is the fatigue issues or the malaise issues that come in after they've had the vaccine. And we've treated thousands of patients that have had COVID. Nobody has died. A lot of them have received the vaccine because they need to keep their job. Now, when we put nutrients on board that aid the detoxification systems, when we put the nutrients on board that aid the inflammation systems, people who have high levels of genetic inflammation, genetically, they're more likely to have vaccine injury. So we go about calming that, especially with omega-3s. We go about calming it with curcumin. We go about calming it with optimizing vitamin D levels. Vitamin D plays a huge role in pain. So we put nutrients on board that start to suppress the levels of inflammation. Whole body collagen. It's another one that's very, very common that we use. Over the top of that, we use peptides. There's a peptide called BPC 157. It's made in gastric juice in the stomach. And as we age, BPC 157 declines. So therefore, inflammation can hang around longer, connective tissue can be compromised more, so therefore more of the fatigue, the joint aches, the tendon aches, the body aches can be more intense. So we'll put BPC 157 on board, balance the hormones, and of course we have to ensure that that person has gone through detox. We'll use a 2-week detox and then make sure that they move into an anti-inflammatory nutritional protocol from there.
Have you seen anyone recover using these protocols?
Absolutely.
What type of recovery do you see?
Well, you take the person that just can't get out of bed. You know, it's exhausted them. It's done some sort of transformation to how the mitochondria function or how the mitochondria are able to produce energy. So if you put the nutrients on board in the right combinations for that system will get better. Improve their detoxification pathways so that cellular information can become optimal and that system can heal. So you give the body what it needs and the body will heal itself.
So you're saying the fatigue that a lot of people are facing, whether it's they know that it's come from taking this vaccine or whether they have fatigue for whatever reason, they don't know why they have it, that this is generally the approach. It's generally mitochondria damage, and they generally can do these types of protocols to recover that?
No, it's not generally mitochondrial damage, but we have to think about where energy is produced. And the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. So if somebody is not recovering just on a general basis by putting a protocol in place, let's say you detoxify them. Let's say you put them on an anti-inflammatory nutritional protocol. Let's say you optimize their nutrients and they're still not well. Then you have to start thinking about what does the mitochondria need in specific amounts to get that mitochondria to function optimally. Remembering that the shuttles in the mitochondria membrane is L-carnitine. So if L-carnitine is not there, the mitochondria cannot receive the nutrients into the inside of the matrix and into the inside of the mitochondria to actually go through that citric acid cycle and electron transport chain to make energy. So it's going to depend upon where the problem is, whether it's detox, oxidative stress, or whether it's all the way down at the level of the mitochondria.
Next, we'll hear from Dr. Brian Ardis, who goes into detail about his vaccine injury recovery protocol that he co-designed with a 40-year board-certified cardiologist, Dr. Thomas E. Levy, on how to reverse myocarditis. He also shares insight into the 4 key nutrients that are proven to protect every cell in the body from oxidative stress, something that the vaccine is notorious for causing, wreaking havoc on the body. Dr. Mark Sherwood continues by giving insight into the additional key nutrients that are vital for protecting the body from insults, such as the harmful effects of the COVID vaccine, and aiding recovery. He also shares the correct doses that you should be taking based on the post-vaccine symptoms that you're experiencing. Vaccine injury recovery, is that something that you talk about?
Yes, I have an yes, that's exactly what we do. In fact, on my site, we actually just released what's called 10 for 10. It's a 10-minute healing video for $10 with me and a cardiologist named Dr. Thomas E. Levy on how to reverse myocarditis, which is going to be caused by these shots. Wow. He's a 40-year board-certified cardiologist.
Awesome.
We did that. We did how to beat high blood pressure and then how to beat chronic COVID, which is actually myocarditis caused by the spike protein on the SARS-CoV virus. So as much as they're trying to kill you, my job is to give you the answers to how to beat it. So yeah, myocarditis is a big deal.
Awesome. Yeah,
it is fatal in 50% of all people that develop that in 5 years.
Yeah.
They've set up these shots and this bioweapon to kill a ton of people over the next 3 to 5 years. It's ridiculous. I put together on my site, thedrardisshow.com, I put together months ago a disease prevention protocol that actually is 4 nutrients proven to protect every cell in the body from what's called oxidative stress, regardless if it's spike protein, virus, bacteria, a toxic poison, radiation, it doesn't matter. All toxins and pathogens are viruses and bacteria, they cause damage to the cell called oxidative stress. I put together this protocol and it lives on my site on the resources page of thedrardisshow.com. 4 nutrients proven at specific dosages for children, teenagers, and adults that will best protect your body's organs from the trauma designed by the spike proteins, by any virus, and by the mRNA and other chemicals in the COVID-19 shots. This is designed for the vaxxed and the unvaxxed, and everyone should be doing it. I'll give you a brief update of what it is. There's 4 nutrients in there proven to protect all cells from oxidative stress. It is 1, vitamin C at a minimum of 5,000 milligrams a day, magnesium at 500 milligrams a day minimum. Number 3 is selenium at 200 micrograms, and the 4th is apple pectin at 700 milligrams twice a day. All the research studies backing those doses is also in this protocol. You can download that for free. That is my concerns. Always early treatment is best. If you want to know what the blessing and the miraculousness behind early treatment, zinc has to be the thing you consider the most. Dr. Zev Zelenko has said from the beginning of this pandemic, zinc inside the cells stops replications of all coronaviruses. And he's right, including all viruses, influenza, it doesn't matter what it is, even coronaviruses. Ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are effective early treatments, and they're the best options, period. One of the greatest side benefits of those drugs is they push zinc and hold zinc inside your cells, so that if a virus happens to get inside that cell, a virus cannot replicate in the presence of zinc. Everyone should be supplementing in the world 50 to 100 milligrams of zinc, I believe, every day for life to protect you from all of these infections.
Thank you for sharing. And I think when we connect again, that'd be great if we could do like a segment or something on specifically on vax recovery and see if you've got any cases. Have you seen any cases that have recovered?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we already have reports.
Like,
and I would love to when we have this
Yeah.
myocarditis and long hauler syndrome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we've seen tons of those. And then of course the damage from people actually report a lot of tinnitus, hearing loss. ED is a big thing being reported post the shots because the spike proteins damaged your circulation. And so we're seeing improvements in all of those when we give out these things. But what would be really great, if you want to do this, I think this would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
Dr. Thomas E. Levy with me, the cardiologist, I think it'd be awesome
Yeah.
to interview both of us and we'll be able to report on the things that we're seeing from our myocarditis reversal protocols.
Oh, that'd be so amazing. So, and in a nutshell, the protocol was you talked about the apple pectin. What were the other things?
So the apple pectin is not in the myocarditis reversal thing because it's not just caused by the shots, it's caused by the spike proteins that are the bioweapon for this whole pandemic.
Yeah, exactly.
So the spike proteins are the dangerous part, causing damage to mitochondria of the heart's cells. So it is vitamin C, it is olive leaf extract, it is it's called Cardio Plus from Standard Process as a part of it. All of your B complexes that have to be methylated, methylfolate, which is vitamin B9, and a methyl form of vitamin B12. It's called methylcobalamin. And then magnesium is critical in the dosages, 500 milligrams, and then selenium at 200 micrograms. That is the dosage protocol. Within a 2 to 3 month period, all of the symptoms should be reversed using those protocols. If you have severe myocarditis, what's great about having Dr. Thomas E. Levy on board, he can actually tell you the intravenous infusions you need of those same nutrients as you can get from clinics around the country. So we actually tell you where you can go to get it intravenous. I give you all the recommendations for oral supplementation to handle it,
Awesome.
which is brilliant. Because
Awesome.
90% of your immune system's in your gut. Where should you put the nutrients? Into the gut. So anyway, I love it.
That's amazing. And so you believe myocarditis can be reversed?
Oh yes, but conventionally they'll tell you it can't be.
Exactly. For people that are listening and thinking about, like, what are some of those core steps? Like, what are the things that you put people on and that generally work well for people? For example, even with vaccine injury, does vitamin C help? Does zinc help? Does vitamin D3 help? And what about magnesium? Is that helpful? I know Dr. Ardis was talking about using magnesium to help pull down, quiet that inflammation. What are some of the steps there, and maybe even the dosages? Like what dose will people take of each of those different types of things?
I'll give you some dosages, and I want to put the caveat on this is not designed to prevent, cure, or treat diseases, the whole paradoxical kind of thing. But the idea is this is generally speaking. There's a lot of people out there talking about things that are basically pretty elementary. it's like, well, duh. So don't think about anything I'm saying right here on the camera as being like revolutionary, shocking, or new. It's not. It's old. There's no new information. So here's what you need, right? You need at least 5,000 IUs of vitamin D. You need to have a good dose of vitamin K1 and K2 with that. Probably 5,000 micrograms of K1 and probably 100-ish of K2, because those two guys will sort of help drive the calcium from our arteries and our blood into our bones. That would be important, right? Vitamin D is important for structure of the bones. It's also important for the immune system. It's also important for brain. If people are not taking enough vitamin D, they're going to be D deficient. They're going to be sad, depressed, immunodeficient, immunocompromised. They're going to eat like garbage and feel like garbage. Okay, so those are minimum dosages. If you're looking for that in the blood, our opinion only is we want a minimum of 60 in that 25-hydroxy blood test, right? So if you're taking direction from a doctor about how much D to take, you need to check it. Do not believe them online. Do not, because they don't know you, right? Number two, magnesium.
You can get a test done with Quest Diagnostics.
You can, simple, and look for between 60 and 100 on there. And you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Magnesium. Pretty much 100% of the population is deficient in magnesium. So again, it's because the soil has not been allowed to rest. Magnesium comes up from the ground into plants, for example, and the plants turn green. But when are plants pulled out today? Before they're green. And so we leave the magnesium stuck in the ground. Magnesium is known as a relaxer, right? Calcium's a contractor, magnesium is a relaxer. Magnesium opens the door to allow calcium to be pulled in the bones. So they work hand in hand. So it's this magnesium-calcium dance. And you want it probably 1 to 2 parts magnesium to 1 part calcium. Pretty simple. There's various forms of magnesium. Stay away from magnesium oxide. If you want to dump your bowels, your constipated, you might take magnesium citrate. Probably magnesium glycinate's pretty good, and probably magnesium threonate is good to get them up there. In the area of probably minimum 300 milligrams up to probably 600, 800, 900 milligrams. If you get too much, your bowels will dump, and you'll know that. Back off, right? Vitamin C again. Vitamin C has been used in these hypertherapeutic doses for a long, long time. But let's understand that vitamin C does not come in hypertherapeutic doses in environment. There's no plant out here that has 3,000 milligrams or 3 grams of C. It doesn't work like that. So we prefer small incremental amounts of C, maybe 500 milligrams twice a day. Works pretty good. Vitamin A is a big one. People leave that one out. 5,000 IUs of vitamin A. There's a big genetic component to the transfer or the synthesis of beta carotene down to these vitamin A, right? We sometimes don't do that genetically. We test genetics so we know, but a lot of people need about 5,000 IUs of A to help with. A is helpful for like the skin, barrier health. Right up in here, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? So sort of withstand the ability of viruses to get infected as opposed to just simply being affected. Omega-3 fatty acids, huge. 100% of the population, not 99, 100% of the population that we've tested have been not inefficient, but severely deficient. If you're not taking omega-3 and a really good one, you're getting ripped off, right? You're going to be deficient. Now, vitamin 3 or omega-3s are key to the modulation of the immune system regarding inflammation. If you're deficient with omega-3s, you will be efficient at creating inflammatory pathways. If you're not taking 3 to 4 grams, which is 3,000 to 400 milligrams, you're going to be deficient. There's something called the omega 6 to 3 ratio. You want probably 4 to 1 down to maybe 2 to 1 omega-6 to omega-3. And the only way to get that is to reduce your excessive omega-6s, which are in the standard American diet, and to increase the omega-3s, which you can't get from diet. You have to supplement. When you supplement with an omega-3, for example, it's super important that the majority of that, let's say 1,000 milligrams, which is 1 gram, you want that 1,000 milligrams to be consistent with about a 3 to 2 ratio of EPA over DHA. Now, those are specific and essential omega-3s. They have words. I love to hear my wife say them because she sounds so sexy when she says them. Eicosapentaenoic acid, docosahexaenoic acid. But the bottom line is they have to be in that equation, filling up that 1,000 milligrams, or you just got ripped off. So we use our omega-3s in 1 gram capsules which have a 3:2 ratio and no wasted oils. So we can dose that at 3 to 4 gel caps and get what we need, as opposed to going to a store and getting something that's just complete slop. And you might have to take 25 capsules to get you there. Again, it doesn't make sense. So those are a few that we use. We use zinc too. Now zinc's popular. Here's the thing. Don't fall in love with zinc and don't think more is better, because you probably need somewhere between 30 maybe and maybe 50 milligrams. That's it. Now I'm talking, these are just not symptomatic things. These are going to be just basic asymptomatic things that every single person needs, period. Okay? If you are symptomatic, you might double these things that I'm telling you for a period of about 10 to 14 days. Key point. Zinc. If you take too much zinc, get it up here to 100 milligrams because somebody that didn't know biochemistry told you that, you're going to deplete copper. Copper is an essential cofactor for a system that's designed to keep you alive, called your antioxidant regulatory element, ARE. It drives a system. It's like pushing the nuclear war button. It has an enzyme cofactor there of copper that needs to be there. If you keep taking zinc, you're going to deplete that system. Who knew? So you gotta deal with people that really know what they're doing and not trying to just sell products. There's a bunch of shysters out there that don't see people, right? Here's an advice for people, and then there's 2 more things I'll add to that protocol. If you're taking advice from a doctor, right, ask them the question, how many patients have you seen? Do you still see patients? And if the answer is, well, I haven't seen patients in 5 years, or I don't see any patients at all and I haven't seen any, then go somewhere else. Because a true doctor learns to listen, cry with, hear, listen, pray for, lift up, heal them. That's what physicians do. Jesus was the great physician. He saw patients every day. He didn't say he did, he did. He saw people. The 2 things I'll add to this that we do that's unique. Number 1, we've used high-dose broccoli sprout powder. Now, broccoli sprout, like any young plant or young person, has more vitality, more energy, more substance, right?
Yeah.
Right, it just makes sense.
Does it have sulforaphane?
Yeah, so this is important. If somebody's marketing a broccoli powder that says contains sulforaphane, that is a false statement. That is not true. And I'll call it, it's a lie. It's a marketing lie that we in America are really good at. Broccoli actually has 2 components in it. If you get a good substance that has its purity from a sprout, it has glucoraphanin, like it's in a separate compartment in the plant, and it has another compartment of this enzyme called myrosinase. When you digest it and chew it or take it, chew it up here, digest in here, the glucoraphanin breaks apart, the myrosinase breaks apart, boom, and together inside you, they create sulforaphane. So it does not contain sulforaphane. You'll hear this marketing hype around it. It has this many grams or milligrams of stuff. It's not true, right? It's a popular term, and it's not necessarily like untrue. It's just not all true. But sulforaphane is actually the inducer of the antioxidant regulatory element, or that ARE element I just talked about, which has to have copper as a cofactor. Okay, I got a little bit biochemically speaking there, but you get the point. And then finally, our last little bit of protocol has been colostrum. We harvest our colostrum from a herd of cows in a cold processing method where it doesn't destroy the proteins in there. So some of the proteins would be like the immunoglobulins, right? The growth factors, and some of the some of the things, antimicrobials inside that, because cows have coronavirus. Who knew, right? You don't see them legs up in the pasture laying around everywhere, do you? So the bottom line is, if we can confer and grab some of that immunity from the cow, I'm all for it. So we've been taking colostrum. And so all that said, that's our nutrient protocol that we've used a lot, and it's always available for people. We tell them that. Don't be cheap on it. Spend what you want. What you pay is what you get, right? And then we tell them to eat real food, get rid of the garbage as I talked about, exercise, get rid of fear, no fear allowed, get some sunshine, get some sleep, turn off the news, and we see health return.
Wow, that's the secret.
That's it. Not a secret at all. It's been around since the beginning of time. It's unraveling all the distractions today, because there's a lot of it. We were talking before we went online here live that the idea of today, we spend a lot of time focusing on the negative, the fear-based stuff, and we can all fall for it. If we can't slant away from that, it becomes a distraction of the truth. What I just talked about was the truth. Truth does set one free. Right? It does provide good results. And that's why, as I stated earlier, that 100% of the time that people do those things, they get better. Now, what does that mean? It's up to God, right? We're not going to die one day quicker than God says so. But we might die one day sooner than God intended for us to do by our dumb, stupid, selfish, rebellious choices we make. Keep walking in front of a bus, you might get hit. Keep eating that processed food, you might get sick. Don't depend on a pill, a pastor, a prayer to help you. You've got to be willing to change inside, and that creates another P, the power of God inside you to transfer and sort of shift your thinking.
Amazing. And so with broccoli sprouts, that is for anyone.
Yes.
I've heard about that being used specifically for vaccine injury recovery. And you would say, well, yes to both, I suppose.
Absolutely. Use it all the time. And what I just gave you is a protocol we should be using anyway. And even if somebody has had a vaccine, again, ignorantly or whatever, and they're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Do that and believe again. And don't go forward worrying about it. Just leave it alone. You can't undo what you did. It's like when you lie to somebody, right? For example, you mentioned like sin, the concept. Anybody understand this, Jonathan? If you lie to somebody, you can't go back and undo the lie. You did it. Yeah. But you can get forgiveness. And God's idea of forgiveness and healing is different than ours. We tend to remember it. Oh, you lied to me. But God doesn't do that. We tend to think that once you did something to your body, it can't be undone. But God doesn't think like that. He healed the leper. He healed the blind, he healed the lame.
Awesome.
That's just how we have to think.
Sure. Yeah, and he wasn't a respecter of persons. He didn't choose to do it to some and not to others. Everyone was free to receive that healing. Nations that were understood to be ones that were outside of God's favor, like the Canaanites.
Exactly.
Where he was specifically going after those groups so that people would know, look, everyone freely can come to me. And Dr. Sherwood, I think, so with that, you've seen, have you seen, I guess like a lot of your patients maybe wouldn't have taken the vaccine, but have you seen any injuries or heard of any injuries having recoveries through these types of protocols?
Trouble recovering?
No, like success. Have you seen any successful recovery?
Yeah, they don't have problems with us.
So if people have come in with an injury, and they're using the kind of protocol you've mentioned, have you seen people get results and turn their issue around?
Well, and I think, in our case, of all those people that we've dealt with, the 9,500, there's a lot of them that have had the vaccine.
Yeah.
Because they were scared, and I can't relate to them. I'm not required to do that. There's no requirement put upon me to do what I do. But in their world, working for this Marxist government system, they're told they have to do it to keep their jobs. So what do you do as a 30-year-old male who's got 2 kids at home and you're panicking about things? What do you do? I can't relate to that. So a lot of those people have taken vaccines. But the point remains, we've lost 0. Now, I'm not going to give anybody the idea that I don't believe vaccines are dangerous. So don't take what I said and, you hear me? Don't twist that. I mean this. It's not about saying they're not dangerous. It's about trusting in a higher power to keep healing in our lives.
Yeah.
It's all about that. I think taking the vaccines personally for children like that is the most barbaric, and I'll say it, asinine way to treat a human being, right? Yeah. Kids don't need that. Sorry, it doesn't work. I don't think I need it. I've had coronavirus. I think our natural immunity is so far superior that God laughs at man's intent to try to do it better.
Sure.
That's what we believe. But having said that, people have their free choice. And vaccines in themselves have not always been a demonic idea or concept. They haven't been that way. You look at polio, and my wife would tell you about that. Her mother ends up dying from the complications of post-polio syndrome.
We've heard from experts who have shared key information about how to use the correct nutrients to help your body heal from the COVID vaccine. Next, we'll hear about how the measures for reversing vaccine injuries may differ from case to case. Dr. Ryan Cole explains the importance of being assessed carefully to determine the best measure to use to treat the injury. He also talks about the benefit you'll get if you get off the cycle of the shots. We'll also deep dive into the important role that medicines like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine play in protecting the body from the damaging effects of the spike proteins that are in the shots with Dr. Ardis. Would you have any more specific information in regard to if somebody's having an adverse reaction, what they could generally do to fight back against that, maybe reverse that?
Like an adverse reaction to the shot?
Exactly.
Well, first, the shots cause clotting, so take an aspirin. And if you're having an adverse reaction, I mean, not out of self-interest, but just out of data, know what your lab values are so you know which adverse part of that reaction can be treated. Is it clotting? Is it rupturing of your red blood cells? Is it an autoantibody attack? You kind of have to know what's causing it. So it's important at least to get measured.
What type of lab work would that be?
Oh, like a D-dimer is a clotting factor, a typical clotting factor, looking at your blood, your common, your CBC blood count, just to see if any of those counts are going up or down. Vitamin D level, I mean, even before getting a shot, your immune system is, to my point a minute ago, it's going to function better if your vitamin D levels are normal. Otherwise, things go haywire. So
awesome. So D-dimer and
CBC. So D-dimer, CBC, CMP, which is your complete metabolic, because that looks at your liver, that looks at a lot of different things as well. So, just getting that basic panel of tests is going to at least indicate to your doctor what type of problem you are or aren't having. So it at least guides you in a potential, abatement of those adverse reactions.
And are there certain things in regard to, I know people talk about something like detox, are there certain...
Here's the thing, and this is, science versus anti-science versus pseudoscience, and this is the challenge.
Not a big fan of detox?
Not necessarily. I think balancing the immune system, balancing your gut health, balancing, your nutritional input is important. But like, if you get a shot, you're making an antibody. You cannot ever get rid of those memory cells that you've made. So your body an antibody is forever. A good antibody is great. A bad antibody can be your enemy. So once you form that antibody, if you're making that choice to get the shot, you're making a choice to potentially have something in your body bad forever. So I feel badly for those who are kind of compelled into it. Most of them, I think, are going to be fine, and hopefully most of them don't have an adverse reaction. But everybody is going to.
If they get off the bandwagon, right?
Yeah. So don't get a third shot, whatever you do.
And don't get a fourth or a fifth or a sixth.
Never.
Because if you got the third, don't get the fourth. If you got the fourth, don't get the fifth. If you don't, get off.
Get off the merry-go-round. Excuse me. Get off the merry-go-round. It suppresses your immune system. Eventually, your immune system won't be able to mount a response at all.
Now, if they protect you from the spike protein damage of damaging heme on the outside of red blood cells, do we think then that just maybe the spike proteins our bodies are designed to make from the mRNA genetic snippets being put into these shots by the billions, and then we see myocarditis and blood clot disorders, which are red blood cells sticking together. Is it possible then that ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine could be of benefit to help protect us from the red blood cell damaging effects of the spike proteins in the shots? I would surmise yes, and they should be used. I'm not one who will ever say I think people should live on drugs for the rest of their life. I think ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, if you've been injured from the vaccines or you have exposure to the virus, I'm not the one that puts this out. FLCCC.net, they've put it out. They'll tell you the ivermectin dosage, and the NIH has said you should do certain dosage of ivermectin if you get sick with COVID-19 for 5 days. And the dosage is 0.2 to 0.6 milligrams for every 2.2 pounds of body weight for 5 days. Preventatively, you can use it. It's 12 milligrams once a week of ivermectin. Hydroxychloroquine has different dosages, but ivermectin is 5 days at those doses. Now, for those who get the shots and have 50 billion particles of spike protein in their body from the shots, what would be the recommended dose there? No one really knows. But ivermectin's not dangerous. It doesn't cause acute kidney failure even if you live on it long term. So I would suggest anywhere from 3 to 6 milligrams and stay on that for 3 to 6 months if you experience any symptoms. But I mentioned something earlier in this interview. I said drugs don't heal the body. There are specific things that you can do to actually help reverse the damage of the myocytes in the heart, which is what the heart cells are called. They are specifically damaged. The mitochondria in the cells of the heart are damaged by the mRNA vaccines. There's a few things you need to know. I already mentioned vitamin C is essential for protecting the cells of the heart. So is olive leaf extract for heart cells. So is magnesium that I already mentioned. And then there is a product, I hardly ever talk about this company because I'm not in practice anymore, but there's a product, I don't know if you want to share this, but
yeah, it's over the counter, right? Standard Process.
Standard Process, yeah. There is a product from Standard Process called Cardio Plus that I recommend anybody who develops cardiovascular issues or concerns. It doesn't matter if you have enlargement of the heart, which is called cardiomegaly. It doesn't matter if you have inflammation suddenly of the heart, that's called myocarditis. It wouldn't matter. I would put every single one of those patients on Cardio Plus.
What if someone had a vaccine injury but it wasn't related to the heart? Would you still say it's worth doing as a preventative, or because you may not know, not everyone gets pain or heart flutters, or would you say, well, no, don't bother?
It's either number 1 or number 2 cause of death worldwide every year is heart disease. So do I think it's important that everybody takes something like Cardio Plus every day for the rest of their life? Yes. I actually, if you read the bottle, it actually says take 2 to 3 a day. I actually take 10 twice a day. Or at least 10 every day.
Is that 20?
Every day. Yep. Every day. You want to know why?
Why?
I don't want to develop heart disease. I'm just that, and it comes from veggies. This is a whole organic supplement company. They develop all their own products from a farm up in Wisconsin, Palmyra, Wisconsin to be exact, and I've visited it many times. I don't want to develop heart disease or die from heart disease. So I take Cardio Plus every day, and I will for the rest of my life, unless I develop some other product that's similar, personally. But I absolutely would recommend they do that. Why? Because heart disease is always listed in America as the first or second leading cause of death, even outside of getting vaccines and having vaccine injury. So to me, yes, Cardio Plus is phenomenal. I would use it.
Awesome.
It is not more significant and more recommended than magnesium. And people ask me all the time, what kind of magnesium do you recommend? I love that question.
Yeah, tell me.
What kind of magnesium do you recommend?
Yeah, what kind of magnesium do you recommend?
Yeah. I used to, and I say this to people all the time. They'll go, well, I've heard of magnesium citrate. I've heard of magnesium glycinate, gluconate, threonate. What do you recommend? And this is what I say to all crowds and audiences. I'll look at them and I'll go, do you remember when they used to say an apple a day keeps the doctor away? If your doctor actually said that to you, would you actually look at him and say, yeah, but what kind of apple, doc? Is it granny apples? What is it? I just kind of laugh about it, but no one ever said there was a specific apple. There really isn't a specific magnesium either. I will tell you, it is proven, Dr. Thomas E. Levy, cardiologist, has written books on this, that magnesium chloride has been well documented to be the most effective magnesium at protecting all cells from viral disease processes. Magnesium chloride. I personally recommend you taking any magnesium every day. There's not a lot of companies that make magnesium chloride in a supplement capsule. They often come in bulk powder, and yes, I have used them. I actually have my own magnesium, and it's a combination of multiple forms. So magnesium citrate has been by far the most used, sold, branded, recommended around the world for decades, and it is good. Magnesium glycinate, gluconate, and L-threonate. These are all great versions also. But I'll give you some examples for magnesium. So I actually bought bulk magnesium citrate, and I started making my own capsules at home. Then I took the recommended doses for me and then gave it to my wife. And then my wife was still having some somewhat restless leg, like cramping sometimes. So then I just switched and ordered another bulk form for her. And I got what's called magnesium orotate. It's just another version. And we put her on that. And then all of her restless legs disappeared. So her body actually did better using a different form of magnesium than magnesium citrate. And I would recommend people do that. Do not be afraid you're going to pick the wrong one. Your body is going to absorb magnesium in any form you take. But you are genetically different, one person to another. You do have different bacteria in your gut, one human being to the other. And bacteria in your gut break down your food and nutrients and absorb them into the body. So you can actually use one for a month and see, do you see improvements in mood? Do you see improvements in energy? Do you see improvements in sleep? Do you see improvements in high blood pressure, maybe even? What about acid reflux? Does that disappear? Great. If you don't see improvements in these things after the first month, you might want to switch to a different version and try magnesium orotate or glycinate or gluconate, and then try that for a month and just play with those. But the recommended dose is always 500 milligrams minimum per day.
So far, we've discussed highly effective and proven methods that our expert doctors have used to treat their patients who have experienced adverse effects from the vaccine. Our final speaker is Dr. Vladimir Zelenko, and he shares his concern about the serious damage the vaccine causes. He goes into detail about the effective treatment protocols that he uses to prevent these serious adverse reactions like blood clotting, heart attacks, strokes, and other serious side effects caused by the COVID shot. He also explains what treatments you can use based on your risk profile. With protocols for vaccine injury, have you been seeing any cases of people being able to turn back their injuries?
So you have to understand what injuries are we talking about. So it depends on how far out from the actual injection are we talking about. In the first 3 months, the main issue is blood clots and causing heart attacks, strokes, and other things. So I found that anticoagulation using blood thinning approaches, whether it's aspirin or there's something over the counter called NAC, N-acetylcysteine, which has anti-blood clotting properties, is very helpful.
Has it been banned? No.
You know, the FDA is trying to ban it, so that's how you know it works. So, but you can still get it. So I strongly recommend that. Of course, ask your doctor.
Absolutely.
But
and if somebody couldn't get that, what else could do
aspirin.
a similar role?
Aspirin.
Aspirin would do a similar role to NAC for that particular function.
Or if you can get more, depending on your risk profile, the drugs, the more advanced anticoagulant drugs like Eliquis, Xarelto, Pradaxa. And then the long-term concern is antibody-dependent enhancement, which is basically what's called pathogenic priming, where your body has produced antibodies that are like bombs, and they're waiting to detonate. And the trigger for the detonation of those bombs is a similar infection to what the antibodies are designed for. So it's that reaction, the immune reaction, that actually kills people. That's what happened in the 1960s with the RSV vaccine. It happened in the 1970s with the dengue fever virus vaccine. And it's happened historically with all the previous attempts at coronavirus vaccines in animal models. A large percentage of the animals died when they were challenged with the virus that they were designed to be immunized against.
It was even Craig Kelly, or it was an associate of his that cited over 50% of all the animals died collectively across the experiments.
Yes, and so you would think, right, that it would be a good idea to exclude that phenomenon from the human race before deploying what the sociopath Gates wants to do, is to give 7 billion people an injection.
Yeah.
Right? Wouldn't you want to exclude that phenomenon from happening before you do that? Well, the answer is, if you're looking to inflict fear, damage, carnage on humanity, no, you don't want to do that.
How many people could die?
It depends who you listen to. Up to, in my opinion, 50% of the vaccinated population.
Similar to the animal experiments.
There are 2 billion people, a little more than 2 billion people vaccinated, which is 1 billion people. Now, if you listen to 2015, the sociopath Gates said in a TED lecture that the world population needs to be reduced by 15% due to global warming. How? Through the use of vaccines.
Yeah.
So first question, why would I take a vaccine for my health from someone who is advocating and financing reduction of the world population?
Yeah. People try to find some other way he could have meant what he was saying, but I can't even get my head around what he could have meant.
Well,
and he even said reproductive services, meaning abortions, correct? So he kind of gave the kit and caboodle there, because people that don't defend innocent life and speak against innocent life often are not defending their own rights or the rights of others, because you're ruining the rights of the child and your own rights when you get on with these campaigns. So he kind of gives it all in a package there.
These sociopaths are real racists. They want to kill the majority of Africa as useless eaters, unsophisticated people. Whatever the rationale is, they want to wage war on those undesirables that they consider undesirable.
Yeah.
What they're doing is spitting in the face of God and denying the sanctity that every human being possesses. But anyway, so my point is...
And the world's not overpopulated either.
It's not. It's God's department anyway. How many people live on the planet, how long we live. Would you feel comfortable saying to someone, I think 1 billion people need to go away? What kind of sociopath says that?
Yeah, and they never mean themselves, right? Otherwise they'd do a great favor to everyone by jumping off a bridge. It's like, well, then you lead the way.
I think that the hunters should be afraid of being hunted.
Yeah.
But they think they're bulletproof. They think they can wage carnage, fear, terror on a global scale without payback. They think they're immortal.
Yeah. And you were saying?
No, so the key is to prevent the antibody bomb from going off.
Yeah.
And the way you do that is by taking antiviral prophylaxis. The answer is not to create more bombs by taking boosters. The answer is take antiviral prophylaxis that will prevent you from getting another viral infection.
Would ivermectin be part of that?
Yeah, of course. And I think anyone who's been vaccinated is in such a high risk. So a 10-year-old child vaccinated, in my opinion, has the risk of death as a 95-year-old nursing home resident. So I would recommend high-risk prophylaxis with ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine, zinc, vitamin C, and vitamin D at the bare minimum.
Yeah.
NAC.
And like frontline COVID critical care, the dosing that Dr. Pierre Corey puts there is good. Do you have dosing and anywhere online where people can learn?
I do, yeah. My website, I have slightly different protocol than Dr. Corey's protocol. Right. He uses higher dose of zinc than, in my experience, has caused a lot of nausea. So I used a little lower dosing, but their protocol is very effective. And my website is Vladimir Zelenko MD.com. It's my name, Vladimir Zelenko MD.com. And there I have all the printed protocols in many languages, both for prevention, prophylaxis, and treatment.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. So, and is it outlined in the setting of vaccine recovery there with the protocol as well? Like, is it listed as such?
No, it's outlined in terms of risk.
Yeah.
So there's low, moderate, and high risk.
Sure.
So if someone's vaccinated, they're high risk, that's what they should follow.
Got it. And have you seen any cases of people reversing vaccine injury from COVID shot?
Well, the best way is not to take any more shots.
Well, I get that, yeah.
I have, yeah. If people are aggressive, the problem is in the first 3 months, people don't realize it and they get blood clots and they get really sick. So we need to spread awareness of the need not to take these shots, but if God forbid you made a mistake, which is okay, everyone makes mistakes, that you should start immediately protecting yourself.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. People should start doing these things immediately. And what is the mechanism that's happening in the body? Like, all these different things happening, brain issues, inflammation, thrombocytopenia, myocarditis, strokes. One girl I interviewed, her mother-in-law had a stroke 3 minutes after her first Pfizer shot, and then 8 strokes thereafter, and was incapacitated in hospice after that. Her sister, 12 days after the first shot of Pfizer, died of a brain aneurysm, and 80 or 90% of her brain was covered in blood. Why are these?
We know exactly why.
What's the mechanism?
We know exactly. The Salk Institute from San Diego 7 months ago published a paper.
Dr. Robert Malone was a part of Salk in the past.
Yes. He did his work in the late 80s there. That's where he developed the delivery and the delivery technology for the mRNA vaccines. Brilliant.
Yeah.
He's now against the use of these vaccines. He's a friend of mine, and he's telling people don't take them. The risks are too horrendous, and the government is lying to you.
It's sad that they used his work for evil. That would be kind of hard to live with.
Well, I think he's doing his best to spread awareness.
It's not his fault. Exactly. It's very admirable that he's done that. And
I don't mind people making mistakes. I mind people not learning from them.
Yeah.
So if he feels that he developed something and now it's not appropriate, he has the courage to stand up and say, listen, I really don't think that this is the right course of action.
Yeah.
That's a decent moral man.
Yeah.
We're not God. No one's perfect.
The mechanism, protein factory.
Yeah, I was saying that from the moment of injection, your body gets taken over and starts producing tens of trillions of spikes that then migrate to the endothelium. The endothelium is the inner lining of your blood vessels. And it lines this, what's normally smooth tissue, with thorns. Now think about it. You have blood cells, red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, flowing through your vessels, usually laminar, smooth flow. And now they're bumping into spikes, into thorns. They get damaged. They leak their internal contents that causes a immune reaction that leads to blood clots. That's the mechanism. So if that blood clot happens in a heart blood vessel, that leads to a heart attack. If that happens in a brain vessel, that's a stroke. That's one thing. The other is that the technology in these vaccines, the delivery system is a lipid nanoparticle, which has been diabolically designed to cross the blood-brain barrier. And that's why so many people are experiencing such horrific neurological side effects, because it actually goes straight into the nervous system and then wreaks havoc on your brain, on your spinal cord, on your peripheral nerves. It's an absolute disaster. It's a weapon of mass murder.
And vaccines that have been doing this in the past with aluminum. What would you say about Delta and Omicron?
They're all treated the same way. I have zero worry of the new variants, because all you need to do is block the common pathway of RNA replication, which is what zinc does. So I'm basically throwing a monkey wrench in the common denominator pathway of all the variants. So I personally don't care how the variant gets into the cell. All I care about is that the virus doesn't make copies of itself and spread.
Got it. So people use the same treatment protocols as they did. So the ones that we can refer to in your site and frontline COVID critical care is the same ones that people use both for treatment of Omicron or
and
Delta.
Prophylaxis.
And prophylaxis as well.
So you need to understand your risk category, and you need to be smart about either taking prophylaxis or early intervention.
Got it. So prophylaxis is for the high risk.
High or moderate risk.
But otherwise?
Otherwise you're safe. You could take it if you want, but it's not, like for example, my children, they all had, 8 children, they all had COVID. I was so happy. Remember the chickenpox parties?
Oh yeah.
So same thing here. They got through it with runny noses and easier than the influenza virus. So.
Yeah. So that's the great piece of knowledge. So Omicron, Delta use the same protocols. As with COVID, you need to assess what risk category you're in. If you're in a higher risk category, you're more likely to do prophylaxis versus just wait it out. And if it happens, then early treatment. As soon as you've got symptoms, then you would go ahead and take the dosing of those things: zinc, vitamin D, D3K2, D3.
No, I'm just D3.
D3, ivermectin.
Again, depends on your risk category. The problem with ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, they're prescription.
Yeah.
And so it depends. There's 2 reasons people die from COVID. One is the moronic doctor you choose that delays treatment, and 2 is the tyrannical government you live under that blocks access to care.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of over-the-counter options now
that
replace the mechanism of action of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, which is delivering zinc into the cell. And those include quercetin, which is a derivative of apple peels, it's a bioflavonoid, or EGCG, which is a green tea extract. They both are very powerful zinc ionophores proven by peer-reviewed studies on the NIH Cvid.
Amazing. So there are two examples. I've heard of bromelain being used from pineapple because it's a proteolytic enzyme breaking down protein, so therefore it's helpful for the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein.
It probably is. My team has treated 7,000 patients without it successfully, so it's. I'm sure there's more than one way to get to the same result.
We're living in an imperfect world where people have been pressured or coerced into getting the vaccine, many without informed consent. Some people have been told that they'll lose their jobs. Some schools won't allow children to attend who are not vaccinated, and the list goes on and on. This means that many people are getting the vaccine, and with a high chance of experiencing adverse effects and injuries, it's more important than ever to learn about the protocols that can help. During this episode, we've heard about the amazing treatments that expert doctors are using to help treat victims of the COVID vaccine. They focus on reducing the chance of serious side effects like blood clotting and heart attacks, and focus on helping people to restore balance in their bodies from the chaos that the vaccines cause. We hope that you'll be able to use this life-saving advice for yourself and for anyone you know that needs it. To find hope and that there are options, and there are incredible doctors who care and aim to share the truth. Did this episode bring you hope? Well, I hope it did, because this is the kind of information that helps people to realize that there are solutions, and that you don't have to just sit there in a situation where you're, for example, injured by a vaccine and just believe that that's your fate and you're doomed and there's nothing you can do about it. That's just a miserable perspective. Or that you took the shot and look, it's too late. Now you just have to wait and see what happens. Don't do that. Don't wait and see what happens. Do what you need to do to get your body functioning properly. And look, God works miracles, I believe that, especially when we partner with God in the healing process and invite that healing power through actually putting the right things in our body and taking the right things out of our body, trying something like a fasting protocol, or using supplement protocols, or using detoxification methods, or all the various information that we've covered, even using ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, early treatment methods to turn off the spike protein, and all of this. But these tools are available to us, so I want you to be able to know that we're here for you. We're here for you as you turn the next corner. Everything that we know is continually evolving, so I want you to know that when you take action and own our program, you're getting access to that future content that we're putting out to help you, because as we turn the next corner and I do a question and answer session with a doctor and I invite you on the call, these are part of some of the bonus gifts that will have these things happening in any of the programs. So any program that you purchase, you'll have the opportunity to join us on these types of calls and bonus materials when I do a new interview on a new vaccine injury recovery protocol, and then I share it with you inside of your membership area so you can access it in that censorship-free environment. So make sure to take action while it's available. Click the buttons or the banner below and you can get started right away. Thank you so much.